For two teenagers, it was supposed to be one of the most memorable nights of their lives, prom night.
And it was.
Hi.
Until the unthinkable happened. Just hours after prom, those teens and two others gunned down in cold blood.
Police get the call and rush to the scene.
Multiple victims. We needed to get there.
Police in West Virginia have identified the 4 teenagers who were killed outside a Huntington home early Sunday.
Randy, it's an astounding story for people who live here, too.
4 families finding out their children are gone forever.
My nephew called me. He said, your son got shot.
It was a scene filled with emotion from a massive crowd grappling with grief. Tensions running high, even for first responders.
Police, they understood they weren't the only ones who had weapons.
From the initial chaos to the hours, days, and weeks that followed.
A lot of the people say that there's a Detroit drug connection because there have been arrests lately.
They're trying to head up out of here and head back to Detroit, and I'm just making sure we're here at the bridge to stop them.
The community's need for answers grew.
We're throwing everything at this investigation at our disposal.
To know that she's begging for her life.
You know, please don't kill me, I'm sorry, please don't kill me, and then there were 2 more shots.
Who in the world would shoot a 16-year-old little girl begging them not to kill her?
But those answers wouldn't come.
People are concerned for each other.
Well, these problems were here 6 months ago. These problems were here 6 years ago.
Their families still have to process this because there's no answers.
Families feeling sadness, turning to anger, frustration, and hopelessness.
They walked away scot-free with murder. Murdering 4 kids. She was a good kid.
I would love to find out who killed my baby, or the 4 of them. But I don't see that happening.
Now, 20 years later, the community still hurting.
And I know the other parents missed theirs too. There's really no closure for us right now.
Neighbors forever shaken.
There's still nights that I wake up in the middle of the sleep.
But as the search for justice carries on,
Would it make me feel any better? Well, it'd make me feel better if I knew exactly who'd done that.
There are people who know, I'm certain, what happened and who did it.
police, hopeful someone with information will lighten the load.
You hear all the rumors and you hear what supposedly transpired, but at the end of the day, 4 people lost their lives.
This case lacks one piece, and it could mean the difference.
I love you, bye.
It's gonna scar us forever.
It's been 2 decades since 4 teenagers were gunned down right here on Charleston Avenue.
And while things look much different with so much new construction, the feelings of sadness and frustration remain, along with the question, who killed them?
Take me back to 2005. Do you remember the call on May 22nd?
Vividly.
What do you remember the most about it?
What I remember the most is it was a normal night. There was a lot of activity going on. It was pretty busy on midnight shift back at that time. And they gave out a shooting call on Charleston Avenue.
Did it feel different than other calls that you've ever been on?
It did, primarily because of my sergeant's, the tone of his voice.
What did that sound like?
We needed to get there.
I see 4 people on the ground.
When we responded, of course, you just have numbers like you hadn't seen before on a murder investigation.
That murder investigation on May 22nd, 2005, unlike any other the city of Huntington had ever seen before. 4 teenagers shot outside a home on Charleston Avenue.
After the initial burst of gunfire, there was a small pause, and then, you know, please don't kill me, I'm sorry, please don't kill me, and then there were 2 more shots.
Megan Poston, Michael Dillon, Eddrick Clark, and Dante Ward. Megan and Michael had attended Huntington High's prom together just hours earlier. EMS found Eddrick still alive and immediately started life-saving measures, but Eddrick died on the way to the hospital. Chad Ward with Cabell County EMS responded to that call and says it's one he will never forget.
We still have to make reports on these patients, and we still have to put them on a cardiac monitor and confirm the death, and I didn't want to do it. And my supervisor at that time was Dave Miller. And he came up and put his arm on me. He said, come on, we'll do it together. And I remember that probably being the worst part of that call for me.
As daylight broke, large crowds of people started to gather at the scene.
As the sun rose, there were loved ones, family members that were coming to the scene to try to get answers. And I remember hearing their grief and seeing their grief.
Huntington Police Captain Steve Compton specializes in forensics, and he says he remembers speaking to officers securing the scene and then went to work.
I went to those officers, spoke to each of them, gathered intel about what they knew, and then settled into the process, the slow, methodical process of crime scene investigation. And that's what we did for the next several hours.
In the days that followed, the community came together for large vigils, hoping for unity.
A peace, Lord, that would comfort us. A peace that would wrap your arms around each one of us.
This, as the late HPD Captain Steve Hall handled questions from reporters, giving what information he could, and speaking frankly about the urgency he and the department were feeling alongside the community.
Having been born in Huntington, moved away as a child, and chose to come back, this offends me. This offends me.
The entire police department worked tirelessly. We didn't know what tired was. We executed a lot of search warrants. We interviewed a lot of people, and I say we, and that wasn't me. We practically suspended a lot of investigative or enforcement efforts focused solely on that case.
Around that time, word of a Michigan connection to the murders started to surface.
We're getting information that the individuals from Detroit were responsible for the murder.
A lot of the people say that there's a Detroit drug connection because there have been arrests lately.
Dante's father was following police close behind, making sure no one got away.
They're trying to head up out of here and head back to Detroit, and I'm just making sure we're here at the bridge to stop them.
What their motives were are unclear at this time.
Police have long believed this woman, Charlethea Bunny Holmes, who was from Detroit, ordered a hit on Dante Ward, which led to the quadruple murder. Holmes has never been charged in the case. She was, however, convicted of ordering an unrelated murder in 2004 and remains in a West Virginia prison. In that trial, a witness testified about his belief Bunny was behind the prom night murders, too.
I have no doubt in my mind she ordered that woman's murder, and I have no doubt in my mind that she ordered 4 other kids' murder in this town.
Again, she has never been charged in connection with the teenagers' murders. But WSAZ had a chance to ask her again about any possible involvement at a parole eligibility hearing in April.
What about to the families of Megan, Poston, Michael, Dillon, Eddrick Clark, and Dante Ward? It's coming up on 20 years. Do you have anything to say to those families? You've remained silent this whole last 20-some years. Do you have anything to say to the Cabell County community? If you do get paroled next year, would you talk to us about your life now and what you're doing for yourself? During the parole hearing, you said you've made great strides in life. We'd love to hear your story. What about to your family? You thought you were going to see them last week.
Bunny's silence not surprising to retired Huntington Police Detective Paul Hunter, who says if she was going to talk, she would have done that already.
I wouldn't put any money on Bunny coming forward and claiming any involvement in this. There's always hope. You never know. Even guilty party may decide to give their life to God, or want to change their ways and decide that the only way that they can do right and make amends is to come forward.
I have never in my whole life caused or put anyone in harm's way.
Chances are slim, but you always have hope.
Now, police will tell you, while there haven't been any arrests, this is not a forgotten cold case.
We sit down with investigators about where the case stands and have their message to the community. And coming up, the mother of the youngest victim shares her daughter's big dreams and how she was able to fulfill a small but precious piece of that before she died.
It's almost impossible to imagine losing a child at the age of 16, but that's the reality that sits just as heavy now as it did 20 years ago on Megan Poston's mother's heart.
Yeah, Sabrina Poston never got to see her daughter graduate high school or have a family of her own because it was at this spot that her life was cut short. But as WSAZ's Martina Bill shows us, she had big dreams, and her mother keeps those alive now as memories.
Hi, Megan. Hi, Megan.
She was her parents' firstborn.
I think you look just like your daddy.
August 30th, 1988.
Here.
And from the moment she came into this world, Megan Brooke Poston stole her parents' heart.
She's so pretty. She is, isn't she? She is a pretty baby.
By the time she was 16, she had her life mapped out on paper. Just a junior in high school, Megan was already planning for the future. Her mother, Sabrina Poston Gebhardt, says she was thriving in a child development class at Cabell Midland, with dreams of someday becoming a labor and delivery nurse. Details Megan wrote about in her 10-year goals.
As an adult, most teenagers don't know what they want to be. A lot of adults don't know either. I'm going to keep trying in my best and hopefully succeed in life in everything that I do. In the next 10 years, hopefully, I'll become that nurse and live a happier life.
That right there is, she had a dream for 10 years, and now here we are 20 years later.
Yeah, she didn't even make it a year.
20 years after her daughter's death, Sabrina says her heart hurts just as much now as it did back then.
Has that pain ever eased?
No, it doesn't. It's like a broken leg. You can start limping after it's healed, but it's always there.
Growing up, Megan was always there for her sisters, Jordan and Stephanie. Seen here in family pictures, the three girls in the early 1990s, all smiles in matching frilly dresses. Just before Megan's death in early 2005, the sisters welcomed a baby brother. And for Megan, her dream of delivering babies came true. The doctor was unavailable just as Casey was making his debut.
He was downstairs tying somebody's tubes while I was having my son. And so the nurse was like, he's coming. And Megan's like, what do you do, you know? She said, well, then you get over here and help me. So she helped the nurse deliver her brother, which is what she wanted to do anyway. Isn't that crazy? She wanted to be an LDR, and she helped deliver the one thing that she would have loved the most.
She did do something in life.
She did. And the doctor said, here, hand him to your mommy.
On May 21st, 2005, Megan got ready for what should have been an unforgettable night.
Hi.
Is that your purse?
No, it's Mom's camera.
No one had any idea that night would be her last. It's a reality Sabrina still grapples with every day, holding tight to memories like this voicemail left on the family answering machine just weeks before her death.
Hey Mom, this is Megan. We're just calling for 8 minutes since we're okay and we're having a good time, and I'll try to call your mom. I love you, bye.
What do you miss most about her?
Telling she loves me. That recording is one of the best things when she told me that she was just fine and she loved me. Missing her saying I love you, Mommy, I think is the hardest thing.
Hi! Not long before Megan's death, Sabrina made it known she never wanted to say goodbye too soon.
It was just like a week or two before she passed. I always told her, I said, if I ever passed before you all, know that I always wanted to go before you all. I don't never want to be here without you all. And I'll be daggone if it wasn't like a week or two later she passed.
Sabrina and Megan's father, Kenny Poston, divorced years before Megan's death, but the two remained united. Kenny often speaking about seeking justice in the unsolved crime.
They walked away scot-free with murdering 4 kids.
And just weeks after we spoke with Kenny in 2020, he suddenly died. Sabrina carrying on without him.
I still do everything that we had done before. I will continue on. I mean, and honestly, he'd be right here with me, doing the same thing.
A lot has changed here on Charleston Avenue in 2 decades. The house where the shooting happened has been replaced, but the tree remains in the front yard. And every year on May 22nd at 4:30 in the morning, this is where you'll find Sabrina.
It's that tree that's still in that yard where my baby's body was with a sheet covered over it is what means more to me, is because that's where I put her candle, I put her rose, and I put her picture.
The picture of who killed her daughter remains unseen, with no criminal charges ever filed. She is not confident justice will ever be served.
It's a cold case. I would love to know if, find out who killed my baby, or the 4 of them. But I don't see that happening.
Is there anything that would bring you closure? That word is very different for a lot of people.
It took me 6 months to get enough nerve to ask God, did I do good enough to get her in heaven? That was my first thing when she passed, was not where she's at, what happened. So, oh my God, did I get her in heaven?
Megan's mother not alone in her grief 20 years later.
How another victim's family is still trying to come to grips with this and their hope for justice.
The pain of losing a child has not faded for the mother of Eddrick Clark.
Yeah, she did not speak out publicly very much after her son's death, but now she is sharing her story of keeping his memory alive and the hope that one day someone will face criminal charges. What made you finally decide that you wanted to talk about your son and what happened?
Because I'm not getting no justice, and I want justice. 20 years later, still with no justice. I've never even went to court. Not one day for my child.
The frustration and the anger in this never-ending quest for justice is always front and center for Eddrick Clark's mother, Joanne. But more than anything, and this is something any parent who's been through something like this could understand, is this overwhelming sense of sadness in losing a child.
Hug me and all of that stuff and whatever, but, you know, if I start crying, I don't care where I'm at, so I'm gonna finish it out.
Whoever said time heals all wounds was obviously never wounded as deeply as the parents of the 4 young people who were murdered on May 22, 2005 on Charleston Avenue in Huntington. In what has become a lifetime of grieving, Joanne says she constantly thinks about her son's final moments on what was his 18th birthday.
My son, it was birthday, May the 22nd, death day, May the 22nd.
The day that he died was the day that he was born.
Absolutely.
18 years old.
18 years old. He didn't even see daybreak of his 18th.
How did you find out?
My nephew called me. He said, your son got shot. I threw the phone. I really did. I threw the phone. But my nephew was still on the phone, and I picked the phone back up. I said, where was he at when he got shot? He said Charleston Avenue.
He was still alive?
Yes, he was.
In the ambulance?
He was shot. He didn't give, they couldn't resuscitate him back for the 3rd time over on the hospital lot. And I finally get in the hospital and I never made it to the room. I made it to the room, but not in the room. Because when I looked that way, I was saying that it was him. And
couldn't do it.
I just broke down, screaming, hollering, crying, it's him, it's them, it's them. Every year on the 22nd, what people do on Memorial Day, I do it May the 22nd. Everything that anybody do.
That's your Memorial Day.
That's my Memorial Day. It was my birthday, my death day. Now it's my Memorial Day.
That's the last phone call you expected to receive, because he wasn't, it's not like Eddrick was in the game.
That's right. He was not involved at all, you know. Like I said, Eddrick, Megan, and Michael at the wrong place at the wrong time. They've been friends since they was in grade school, Megan and Mike and Eddrick.
20 years later, the families of those childhood friends are still tied together in their grief and hopes that justice will one day be served. While no arrests have ever been made in the teens' deaths, Huntington police have long pointed to Shirlethia Bunny Holmes as the one they believe ordered the hit that led to the murders.
Ms. Holmes, do you have anything you'd like to say to the family members of the quad shooting victims?
Again, she's never been charged in the case, but she remains in prison, convicted of ordering a separate murder. So we asked Joanne what she would say to Bunny if she could speak to her.
What would be your message to her?
Speak up and tell the truth. If you don't want to take the fault and put it to the people that you put out to take my child's life and my other children.
Though decades have passed, the horrific memories of that day haven't for anyone who was there, including Bishop Samuel Moore, a trusted member of the faith-based community.
And he was called out that day to be a source of calm and a person to lean on in the chaos.
It was just a real ugly scene out there.
It's a scene Bishop Samuel Moore says you never forget.
Because it was difficult. It was very difficult.
The pastor of Full Gospel Assembly in Huntington is one of several faith-based community members who showed up to Charleston Avenue the morning of May 22nd, 2005. Bishop Moore says he had just finished up with a men's ministry early that Sunday morning. My
wife called me and said there was someone at the door pounding on the door, and she didn't recognize the car. So I asked her who it was, and she said, so I went out, and I could see my house from the stoop of the church here, and as soon as I went out, the young lady recognized me.
She was pleading that he come quick.
So I went to Charleston, and it was just an awful, confused scene. The main thing was that we needed to be sure that we kept things under wraps, because as I told the policeman, with those people who were out there, the police, they understood they weren't the only ones who had weapons. And if anything had gotten crazy, it could have gone south real quickly. While I'm in the midst of that, to have a spirit of prayer and asking God to help me with what to say, how to behave, who to approach.
Though 20 years have passed since that day, Bishop Moore says he oftentimes thinks of those 4 young men and women.
These were kids. This is long haul right here. You know, it may be suppressed for a while, but it comes back.
And admits that even with time, complete healing may never come.
The issue of a sentence, even if someone was arrested, that's not going to help you. It might make you feel a little better because someone is paying the price, but it's still not going to help you with this grief that you have for this child. I think people don't understand that. They think, well, if I had someone that we could lay this claim on, that I would be better. I'm not sure we would.
And while those responsible may never step in front of a judge here on earth, Bishop Moore believes they will face the ultimate judge one day. Do you feel that one day, whoever was responsible for this will have to face judgment?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think a person can do such a dastardly deed as this and just get away scot-free. And, you know, I'm running with my friends and having a good time. Nobody knows. There is an all-seeing eye. Someone knows. I do believe that eventually, in spirit, that person will face justice.
Seeing those responsible brought to justice, a shared sentiment among the entire community and police.
Why police say this case is far from cold, and the strong message for anyone who may be holding back information.
Listen. There is a peaceful silence on Charleston Avenue in Huntington. And from the look and sound here in 2025, you'd never know the pain and heartache felt here 2 decades ago. The initial shock, the roaring cries that followed.
We're taking it back, hallelujah. We're taking back our streets and our city.
An entire community overcome with grief. But to understand the magnitude of what happened there on May 22nd, 2005, we need to go here to the Huntington Police Department. Those emotions still in the minds of investigators 20 years later.
Can you still picture that scene?
Oh, every day I picture that scene.
Do you remember the call on May 22nd?
Vividly.
Steve Compton and Ryan Bentley Both, now captains at the department, responded to the murders of 4 teenagers: Dante Ward, Eddrick Clark, Michael Dillon, and Megan Poston. Captain Bentley, a patrolman at that time, was finishing up a midnight shift when the call came in about 4:30 a.m.
I remember my sergeant was the first one to arrive on scene. He was the first one to give out radio traffic, and you could hear the tone in his voice change, that he had multiple victims. He needed more help. Every one of us dropped what we were doing, no matter what we were on. Those with arrests, those on calls, everything stopped and went to go assist.
What did you see?
There was a lot of people. There was a lot of heartache. There was a lot of grief. There was a lot of exhausted policemen that were trying to preserve that scene so we could do our job.
Trying to preserve the scene for forensic investigators like Steve Compton, who says he understood the importance of his job that day.
It was shocking, right? So we were shocked, but that shock kind of turned to a controlled anger, if you will, and a willingness to want to provide those people who were showing up with the answers that they were looking for.
Have you thought about this case over the years?
Every day.
What goes through your mind?
I just wish that they had peace.
Would different technology help us or change the way you guys were able to investigate that?
The evidence that was there, painted a picture of what happened. The Huntington Police Department has a pretty good idea of how this event transpired.
Is there something that you're missing to be able to take it to court?
Of course.
Are you able to share that?
No, I think it's sufficient to say that this case lacks one piece, and it could mean the difference.
Bentley is now the Criminal Investigators Bureau Commander who oversees the Prom night murders case. The department has long believed Shirlethia Bunny Holmes ordered the hit that led to the teens' murders. And while she has never been charged in the case, she remains in a West Virginia prison, convicted of ordering a separate, unrelated murder. We asked if the department has any plan to try to talk with her while she's still behind bars.
There was some tremendous investigating done in this, thousands upon thousands of man-hours that have been put into this by fantastic investigators, both detective-wise and forensic-wise. What I can tell you is this case is still active, and we are pursuing all leads.
What would your message be to the community?
That we grieve with you still, that we still do not consider this case cold. If you could search our hearts, you would know it's not cold.
Back on Charleston Avenue, that silence you hear. It may seem peaceful, but it's that same silence police say is actually preventing peace for the families.
What would your message be to somebody that may be holding something back, that knows something about that night?
If that person has information, it's probably a tremendous burden that they've carried for 20 years. And our door is always open. We would love to talk to them.
Of course, it's never too late to help investigators, family members, and the community. Huntington Police have a tip line, 304-696-4444. You can call with any information.
Thank you so much for joining us for our special Prom Night Murders 20 years later.
Have a good night.